Well, thank you and welcome everybody this evening. And I'd just like to say, I like to think that what these Liberty events are really doing are fighting for the heart and the soul of the Liberal Party. And I think most of you would agree with that. We have some serious problems in the party today. So what I want to do is start off... I want to start off with a motivational quote. It's already been mentioned this a couple of times. Menzies is dead. I love that. Menzies is dead. So basically what somebody is suggesting is that the very concept of what this party stands for is old-fashioned, no longer relevant. So I'm going to pick three things out, which I think are relevant. The first one, the rights and freedoms of all people to work towards a lean government, right? And maximises the individual and private sector initiatives. Is that old-fashioned? Does anyone believe that that's not out of date? Think very loud. Does anybody believe that that's out of date today? Not being very loud here.
No.
No. Good. The second one, in those basic freedoms of parliamentary democracy, the freedom of thought, worship, speech and association, those things are under direct attack in our own party. Why? These things are relevant today. And I'll remind you of what one great man said, Ronald Reagan, that the 9 most frightening words in English language are, I'm from the government and we're here to help. The third one, an equal opportunity for all Australians and the encouragement and the building of wealth so that they may enjoy the highest possible standards of living, education and social justice. Does anybody believe that's not relevant? So who made this nonsense comment? Was it from the Greens? No. It was from the Shadow Education Minister. Now, from memory, Robert Menzies was Prime Minister of this country for 16 years. 17? 16, 17. But he was also Prime Minister during the United Australia Party years as well, prior to the Second World War, rather. Now, guess what? Is that one a bit louder? Okay. Yeah, that might be a bit, that's a bit better. Okay, that's going to be a bit active now too. I'll keep my voice up. That was the Shadow Education Minister. As I said, 16 years Robert Menzies was in government.
Some of the young people can't hear you.
I'll try and sing. The microphone's a bit going in and out a bit. I was dropping in and out.
We could do a duet.
Hey, we can do a duet. Don't get me singing, that'll be a problem. Yeah. As I was saying, 16 years Robert Menzies was Prime Minister of Australia. Since 1999, we've had 4 miserable years of a state Liberal government. So tell me anybody how on earth we can be out of date with what Robert Menzies pursued and the things that he set the party for. We need to get back to a lot of those standards, not move away from them, and then perhaps we won't be sitting on 23% of the primary vote.
Yeah.
They've managed to lower our primary vote from 34% of the election to 23% now. Why is that? Because all aspirational voters have deserted this party. And we're not going to get them back unless we make some significant changes. So what I want to talk to you about this evening is to create a plan, we actually need to understand the problem. The first problem is superannuation. And you've got to understand that when superannuation was brought in the early 80s by Neil Blewett, who was actually from the socialist left of the Labor Party, it was only brought in to replace the old age pension. It was never designed to do more than that. And you know what? It doesn't. And that's half the problem. The other problem is a lot of people think that they've got insurance within superannuation, and in most cases it's completely inadequate to the average person. A lack of savings is a big problem. Most people cannot save up enough money for retirement. Massive rental shortages. Now this is happening for a whole host of reasons. Currently there's probably 19% less rental properties on the market today than there was in 2019 before the pandemic started. And there's a whole lot of reasons why this has occurred. A lot of people sold their rental properties because they couldn't get tenants, and there were all sorts of issues like that at the time. Housing affordability has become a big issue, and I'm just going to make a comment on this as well, and it probably won't be popular of me to say this, but when the Liberal Party launched their $25,000 grant, I understand why they did it. The logic was to get the market moving. The problem is it doesn't work. These sort of grants simply do not work at all. And the reason being is because what it actually did, it artificially inflated the market. Now, I'll give you one quick example. There was an estate in Craigieburn where there were 100 blocks available that were titled. The company selling them were offering a $15,000 rebate. The day the $25,000 grant came in, the $15,000 rebate was dropped. So automatically you've just lost $15,000 if you're 25. Price of land, 3 weeks later there were 9 blocks left in that particular estate. What happened? People rushed in, they bought the land, the builders all signed fixed price contracts, and the price of building materials, which the government didn't project, went up by over 30% last year. And the end result of that is you've had building groups go broke and a lot of people not being able to afford the housing. Land's gone through the roof, it's gone up by 30 to 40%, and the building costs have gone up by a similar amount. There are large shortages in retirement. And by that, I sit down with people. Part of my role in what I do is we assess people's retirement over a 20-year period. And in most cases, people have got very large shortfalls for retirement. And I'm talking about people that are on very high levels of income as well. And the reason being is without investing your money correctly, you can't make it work for you. So options available on retirement without having enough money. Downgrade your home. And a lot of people are going to be forced to have to move to smaller properties. Downgrade your lifestyle. 98% of Australians will not be able to keep their current lifestyle going in retirement. Now, this is a frightening thought. No one talks about it. There's no education in this area, but these things are a fact. Live off your super for as long as it lasts. And in most cases, it's not that long. Reverse mortgages were becoming popular. They're quite expensive, but some people may have no option. Or live off the old age pension, which is just under $36,000 a year as a couple. Can anybody here tell me, could you live on $36,000 a year? No. Anybody? Well, that's the reality that most Australians are currently facing. Or live with your children. Now, we know it's the other way around at the moment, but I guess when we're trying to go back and live with them, they'll be moving state. So is my superannuation enough? And I talk about these topics because they're really important. The average superannuation balance in 2022, according to AMP, was $649,000 approximately. If you multiply that by 5%, because that's about the returns you get on super, that's $32,452. That's actually less, in most cases, than what you're going to get in the old age pension. I think so. It's even louder, I think. Okay. $1 million in super will generate $50,000 a year in income. Think about it. That's a lot of money that you need to make. So most people are living with less than enough to maintain their current lifestyle. It's about 98% of the population. Now, what do you think the government's solution is to fixing this problem? Okay? The solution is 712,000 people to be brought into this country over the next 2 years, 1.5 million over the next 5. Now, anybody who believes that we're bringing people into Australia because we're actually worried about filling current jobs is deluded. It's not the case. It's because most people won't be able to maintain their lifestyle in retirement, so guess what? What that actually means is you have to bring in a whole lot of younger people into the country. They're going to drive the workforce and drive the economy. Because if people don't have enough money in retirement, how do we drive the economy? How does the housing market continue to grow? How do any of these things happen? So we need not only to fix the rental crisis, but also the housing affordability crisis as well. And this is becoming a significant problem. So let's look at some solutions. So just before I get to that, what you've got to consider as well, that if we've got 712,000 people coming into Australia in the next 2 years, even if you're generous and you multiply that by 4 people per household, that basically is about 162,000 dwellings that we have to build in the next 2 years. It's impossible. Metricon, who were the largest builder in Australia, at their peak, were building 5,000 homes a year. So where are we going to get 170 to 200,000 dwellings a year from? They're not going to be able to build them. Now, I don't want to scare anybody here, but we are going to have the worst case of homelessness that this country has ever seen. It's probably one of the first times where I'd say the media are under-exaggerating just how bad this problem is going to be. It's already started. So how are we going to put people into property? So we've got to think, how do we start to get some belief back into the party? How do we win back some of the under 30 vote that has virtually deserted us over the last few years? So we have to try and develop policy to help younger people as well. So policy number one is let's move away from first home buyer grants and allow first home buyers to negatively gear their own homes. This already happens in the United States, by the way. In America, you can actually negatively gear. What that means, in a nutshell, it just allows them to claim the interest against their tax that they're paying. We might limit that for 5-10 years, and it only applies to the first property that they buy. But what we're doing is we're actually giving them a practical reason to try and get into the housing market and helping them without giving them a grant, because all grants do is artificially inflate the market every single time. A policy like this is a tax policy which is going to help. I mean, we could go one step further and say we should be doing that for childcare as well, allowing them to claim against their tax for childcare as well, rather than giving grants. All of these are things that are going to help and bring younger people back into the party. Look, the idea the Federal Party has at the moment regarding allowing you to dip into superannuation is well and good. But how many people between the ages of 20 and 30 have got enough money in super to draw down for a housing deposit? It simply isn't possible. I suggest that government should start talking to the industries a bit more to find out what the real problems are. Some other solutions. Policy idea number two. For anybody who invests in property at the age of 65, if they sell their first investment, they don't pay capital gains tax. Now think about it. If we've got a whole lot of people who are going to retire with next to nothing or very little, if we actually say to them, if you buy an investment today and you keep it for 10 to 15, 20 years, and you sell that property at the end, and you end up with $400,000 or $500,000, that goes straight into your super, and it means there are going to be less people that are going to have to be dependent on the old age pension. Don't you agree?
Yeah. And provides accommodation.
Yeah. And it provides long-term accommodation into the market that's lacking at the moment. We need to incentivise people to invest. Do you know what the government's trying to do at the moment? In Victoria, they've just lifted land tax from $300,000 to $50,000. So what it actually means is that anything over $50,000 now attracts land tax in Victoria. Where is the incentive for people to do that? And they're trying to make it harder and harder for people to invest. We need to actually encourage more people to do this. It's not the rich that invest. People need to invest their money to make it work more effectively for them. So this already occurs, for instance, does anybody have a self-managed super fund in the room? Well, if you already have a self-managed super fund and you have a property in it, already you don't have to pay capital gains tax if you sell it. We're talking in many cases people that can't afford to set up a self-managed super fund. So why not give people a leg up? Why not encourage them to be self-sufficient in retirement? It's almost, you'd almost think that the government actually wants you to be reliant on them. And I mean, unfortunately, I think that's much the case. You know, we live in a socialist regime, unfortunately, in Victoria and Australia as a whole. So the policy will encourage many people to invest long term, therefore it increases supply into the market, which we're dramatically lacking at the moment. Policy idea number three is create a compulsory subject of financial literacy to become from year 7 to 10 at school as a compulsory subject. I've raised this with the leader of the party, I've raised it with other people, and I'm waiting to see it happen. You keep getting told by politicians that it's not a necessity or it's not yet a priority. It should be a priority. Our current youth learn less about market, have less understanding about finances today than we do. And let me tell you, I meet a lot of people on high incomes who haven't got a clue about what level of super they have or how to invest their money or how to make it work. This is not about being rich, it's just about being self-sufficient, being able to control your own destiny into the future. But let's face it, unless we as a party start to become parties of ideas, where we reach out to the public and we say, we want to win government, we deserve to win government because we're reaching out to the aspirational population, which today is at least 50% of the population. We don't have 40% of the people voting for the coalition or Labor anymore. There might be 20 to 25%. and the balance of them are independents, as they are in the United States as well. So that's the point. You've got to win the independent voter and the aspirational voter. At the last federal election, the one seat that did quite well was Latrobe, which is out in Clyde, Berwick and areas like that, where we actually increased the vote. And it was the only seat where we actually increased the vote to the Liberal Party in the last federal election. So that tells us where our market is, where we should be aiming. We need to educate the next generation. If we only get to 2 or 3 people out of 10, we're going to make a big difference for where we end up in 40 or 50 years' time. And that's it. Thank you.